We're actually inside Halifax Chambers. We should note that the Dartmouth chambers are being utilized by public health for vaccination clinics, so they have all their equipment and gear set up there. That's why we allow them to stay, and we moved over here for a temporary basis. But let's call the meeting to order. I'd like to, first of all, welcome members of council to Chambers. I see Councillor Purdy, Councillor Austin, and Councillor Mancini are present. We have regrets from Councillor Becky Kent. Okay, since we're doing this live, I don't think we need to do a full introduction. Everybody's online, so we'll just carry forward. May I have approval of the minutes of October 14th, please? Moved by Councillor Austin, seconded by Councillor Purdy. Any question on the minutes before I call for the question on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. 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 Motion carried. Approval of the order of business or approval addition or deletions. Mr. Clerk, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is one requested deletion that relates to an item which was a deferred item that's actually coming, was slated to return to the December meeting, and that's requested for deletion.
Yes, so case number 23791, the discharge development agreement for 42 townhouses on Brian Dickey Drive, Muscatawbin Harbour. I'm very pleased to say that the owner of that property has decided to sell the property with the development agreement instead of discharging it. Therefore, the proposed development should hopefully proceed with the new developer. I want to thank Mr. Mike Young and Kim Young and Berkshire Developments for their vision of going forward with this plan, and now hopefully the new owners will be able to carry it out for them. Okay, no order arising from the minutes. Call for any declarations of conflict. Is there any tonight? Any conflicts being declared? Seeing none, carry forward. No motions of reconsideration, no motions of rescission, no motions of we have one motion here of deferred business. That'd be 8.1, case number 23374, development agreement for 246 Waverly Road and 2 and 4 Montebello Drive in Dartmouth. Councillor Mancini, I believe you're the one that wants this matter dealt with.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll put the following motion on the floor, that the Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council refuse the proposed development agreement enabling the development of a 6-story multi-unit dwelling at 246 Waverly Road and 2 and 4 Montebello Drive, as set out in the attachment A of the September 27, 2021 report. So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. So, colleagues, this is not the first time that we've seen a proposed development on this corner. A number of years ago, I think it was either 2016, 2017, I can't remember, when I first got elected, there was a proposed development application in the works. We had a community meeting, an information public meeting. The design at that time was presented to the community. At that time, there was lots of opposition to it, and quite frankly, there were things such as the density was a big issue. It's a much bigger proposal. The design and the form really didn't fit the area. Traffic was an issue, as it always is with development. The location of the driveway was an issue. The homes bordering the property were totally against being up against something that's large, and so there were a number of issues. The staff at the time were they were writing the report. I think, you know, all indications show it was going to be a negative recommendation. So at that point in time, the applicant pulled their application. They went back to the drawing board. They hired a new consultant. They hired a new architect, and they've come back with the design that we're talking about tonight. I'll give them full credit. They showed that they listened. They really made numerous changes. It's a building is not as big as originally was proposed, a much different design, a much different form. For the traffic issue on Waverly Road, if you're familiar with that area, they've set back the building off of Waverly Road, so it allows for a right-hand turn off of Waverly Road onto Montebello. They changed the location of the driveway. The applicant actually bought the homes surrounding the property, so he now owns them, and so those that were opposed to it, that were right up against it, that's less of an issue. The report in front of us, and thank you to the staff, it's an excellent report as always. However, they're proposing that it's a negative report, that we don't move forward because it doesn't line up with the policy 100%. So the first time around, it wasn't even close to the policy that existed. This time around, it's much closer to 100%. Staff do have some issues, so following the procedure, they're saying negative because it doesn't fit the policy. My perspective on it, colleagues, is that we're much closer to the policy than ever before. We're in a different climate than we were a number of years ago. We need more units, and we need more units in the Dartmouth area. That doesn't mean we approve everything that's in front of us, and I'm not suggesting we approve the application tonight, but I think that we've got something that's better, and what I'd like to see personally is this to go to second reading. And for those of you watching at home, what second reading simply means is that we'd come back, I believe, in December. The staff would give a presentation on the application. The applicant would then give a presentation. We would then move to a public hearing. So the community can speak up and give their opinion on this application. Then we would debate it and then vote either to accept what the applicant is giving or deny it. I think what's in front of us right now is that's what we should be doing, and I ask colleagues to support me on that. And I'm going to, so I'm asking you to turn down the motion that's on the floor, the recommendation from staff, and then if that's the case, I'll be bringing forward, if it gets turned down tonight, will be alternative 1A in the report. I just lost what that is. Yeah, 1A in the report. So again, for those who listen at home tonight, I'm not suggesting we approve this project. I think it's worthy of going to second reading, so I'm asking colleagues to vote down the motion tonight, and I'll move 1A, and then we'll bring it to second reading and go through that process I described. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any comment for the councillors? Hearing none, then I'll call for the motion. All those in favor of the motion as presently on the floor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Nay. Motion is defeated. I'll take an alternative motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to put the following alternative motion on the floor. 1, Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council may choose to approve the proposed development agreement as contained in attachment A. In selecting this alternative, council may give notice of motion to consider the proposed development agreement as set out in attachment A to construct a 6-story apartment building at 246 Waverley Road and 2 and 4 Montebello Drive and schedule a public hearing. So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Austin. All those, any further question or debate on the motion?
I'm good for me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further comment from councillors? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, colleagues.
Next on the agenda, there's no notices of tabled matters. There's no public hearing tonight. Correspondence, the clerk has circulated some correspondence, and I believe some of it was just in relation to the previous item we just discussed. Is there any other correspondence, Mr. Clerk?
No, Mr. Chair, that is the correspondence which has been circulated to all members of Harbour East.
Are there any petitions to be filed? Any petitions to be presented? Anyone? Seeing Mr. Clerk, any?
No petitions from the clerk. No petitions received from the clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you. No presentations are scheduled tonight. No information items were brought forward, so we'll go now to the staff reports. Item number 13.1.1, case number 22867, Stage 2 Development Agreement for 16 Kings Wharf Place in Dartmouth, Lot E. Have a staff presentation to come forward.
For the presentation?
You
Yep.
move mass and
Great, thank you. Good evening. My name is Jamie Ellen Klenovic, and I'm a planner with HRM. I'll be discussing case 22867, which is an application to enter into a Stage 2 development agreement for 16 Kings Wharf Place in Dartmouth. The applicant is Anchorage at Dartmouth Cove Property Development Incorporated on behalf of property owner Kings Wharf Partnership Group Incorporated. The downtown Dartmouth secondary planning strategy requires a 2-step process for development in this area. The first step was a Stage 1 development agreement approved by Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council in February of 2020. The proposed Stage 2 development agreement would be the second step. The subject site is 16 Kings Wharf Place, which is identified as Lot E in the 2020 Stage 1 DA. If approved, the Stage 2 DA would apply only to Lot E. This is the subject site, a wide view on the left with Lot E outlined in red in the image on the right. The site is located on Halifax Harbour between Dartmouth Cove and Ferry Terminal Park. This is the site as it is currently developed. These images show the site from opposite ends of Kings Wharf Place. There are currently 4 multiple unit dwellings on the site, which were developed under a previous development agreement. In the image on the left, Lot E would be to the right of the visible street. The subject site is located within the center plan area. Regional Center MPS Policy 3.9 directs council to apply policies that were in effect prior to center plan to this application, which would be the marine slips policies of the Downtown Dartmouth Secondary Planning Strategy. The site is zoned and designated downtown under the Regional Center Land Use Bylaw and NPS, and the site is currently vacant. The enabling policy is W9 of the Downtown Dartmouth Secondary Planning Strategy. The existing Stage 1 development agreement would continue to apply to the entire Kings Wharf development site if the Stage 2 DA is approved. The Stage 1 DA allows up to 1,146 new dwelling units, just over 27,000 square meters of commercial space, 4 new public streets, 2 marinas, and park and open space uses. It permits 16 new buildings on individual lots, ranging in height from 12 to 120 meters. The Stage 1 DA requires a property owner to construct a grade-separated emergency vehicle access prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit for any new buildings on the Kings Wharf site. This is the lot configuration approved with the Stage 1 DA. Lot E is shown here in red, abutting the CN rail line, Kings Wharf Place, and a new road, Road A, which is not yet constructed. The proposal is for a 27-story mixed-use tower with an internal courtyard connected underground to a 4-story structure. The proposal includes ground floor commercial uses facing Kings Wharf Place, Road A, and the internal public courtyard, with pedestrian access to the internal courtyard from Kings Wharf Place and Road A. Vehicle access to underground parking would be from Kings Wharf Place. The site would also include a public easement beside the building and abutting the CN rail line to enable a future active transportation connection to Ferry Terminal Park. This is a stylized rendering of the proposed building as seen from the corner of Kings Wharf Place and Road A. In the foreground is the 4-story structure with a 27-story tower visible behind. This is the elevation from Kings Wharf Place with the tower on the right and the 4-story structure on the left. Pedestrian access to the internal courtyard would be between the 2 structures. Vehicle access to the underground parking would also be from Kings Wharf Place. The tower includes a 3-story podium with a maximum street wall of 22 meters. This is still the Kings Wharf Place elevation, here showing more detail of the 4-story structure. This part of the building could have a maximum street wall of 16 meters. The applicant's intention is for this structure to be a hotel use wrapped with retail uses facing the public streets, but the proposed DA is flexible on this point and will permit other commercial and residential uses. This is the Road A elevation of the 4-story structure. There will be pedestrian access to the internal courtyard at the end of the street wall on the far left of this image. This street wall will be a maximum 15 meters tall. This is the elevation that would face the CN rail line and Elderney Drive. So we see the 3-story podium on the left of this image rising to the 27-story tower. The proposal includes a large courtyard between the 2 parts of the building. The courtyard would include a playground, bicycle parking, a dog run, and flexible outdoor amenity space for residents. Some parts of the courtyard will be publicly accessible, and some outdoor amenity space will be reserved for residents. The green area is the required outdoor amenity space. Downtown Dartmouth Secondary Planning Strategy Policies W9 and W9B list the criteria for evaluating this application. The criteria most relevant to the Stage 2 DA are as follows. That development provides a mix of land uses, including residential uses with a mix of unit types, high-quality urban design. Buildings should be designed to create public spaces and to provide weather protection for pedestrians. Parking should be below grade or wrapped with active uses. Microclimate issues such as wind, solar orientation, and shadowing should be considered. Pedestrian street level activities should be supported. Proposals should respect that the waterfront is primarily a pedestrian precinct, and pedestrian circulation should be an important consideration. Buildings should be designed to create attractive and functional public spaces and pedestrian routes. Active ground level uses are encouraged adjacent to public access points and public open spaces. Public art should be provided, and architectural details should provide visual interest to the upper stories and at pedestrian level. The level of engagement for this application was consultation, achieved through providing information and seeking comments through an HRM website, signage posted on the subject site, and mailed fact sheets. Feedback from the community generally included concern regarding public safety if additional dwelling units are permitted prior to a grade-separated emergency vehicle access into the site being complete, and concerns regarding traffic on Kings Wharf Place relating to vehicles queuing to wait for passing trains. With respect to the microclimate conditions on the site, the Stage 1 DA required a wind tunnel assessment of the proposed development to evaluate expected wind conditions. The wind report identified a maximum safe wind speed of 25 meters per second for more than 0.1% of the time from any given wind direction, and the wind expert recommended wind interventions for any area where expected wind speeds exceeded the safety criterion and were worse than existing pre-development wind conditions. This means that wind conditions in some locations on the site would continue to exceed the safety criterion after construction despite proposed wind interventions. The proposed development would not be expected to make the pre-development wind conditions worse. To summarize the proposed development, maximum height would be 82.5 meters plus some permitted overruns. Maximum street wall heights would be 22 meters and 16 meters along Kings Wharf Place and 15 meters along Road A. Bicycle parking would be provided in accordance with the land use bylaw for the regional center. Landscaping, including rooftop landscaping, would be required according to the preliminary landscape plan attached to the proposed DA. Both street frontages are pedestrian-oriented commercial streets with a pedestrian-focused list of permitted uses to animate the streetscape. Indoor and outdoor amenity space will be required, as would wind interventions, and the proposed DA includes provisions requiring that the grade-separated emergency vehicle access be operational prior to occupancy permit issuance in accordance with the approved Stage 1 DA. If Council passes the recommended resolution this evening, there will be a 14-day appeal period. Once the appeal period is lapsed or any appeals are resolved, the developer can proceed to permitting. This application is coming forward with a positive staff recommendation. Staff recommend that Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council approve the proposed Stage 2 development agreement as set out in Attachment A of the staff report dated September 21st, 2021. That's the end of my presentation, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Austin would like to start the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll put the motion on. I move that Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council 1 approve the proposed Stage 2 development agreement, which shall be substantially the same form as set out in Attachment A of the September 21st, 2021 report, and 2, require the agreement to be signed by the property owner within 240 days or any extension thereof granted by council on request of the property owner from the date of final approval by council and any other bodies as necessary, including applicable appeal periods, whichever is later. Otherwise, this approval will be void and obligations arising hereunder shall be at an end.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Mancini. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a bit of an odd, this feels like an odd one to have such a substantial building here without a public hearing, but I think for anyone who might be following along on this, the reminder on that would be we've already approved the Stage 1 plan for this that sets out this site as appropriate for a building of this size and scale. We had that hearing already back, I think it was about a year ago that we amended that Phase 1. So that's not really on the table tonight. So when we look at this project, you know, to me the tower's a little bland, but I mean the part that really matters, that courtyard, that street level interface in this development is very solid and heads and tails over what was built in the first 4 buildings at Kings Wharf Place. This is a much more urban context that's being built, which is a much better fit for a place like downtown Dartmouth. So I'm quite pleased with the project. I do have just a few questions just coming from the presentation. On the wind piece, just to make sure I understand exactly there what the situation is. It's already windy on the site. This development isn't going to make that worse, but the conditions, because it's already windy, are going to, like, they won't be as comfortable as we would like. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that's a fair characterization. This site is by the water and it's already very windy. Also, one thing that they were running into, if I can just, I have the, these are the two wind maps that were shown in the wind study. So this is the summer image and this is winter. So the circles with the red and the yellow are the ones that are,
Not on the screen.
oh. In any case, there are, there we go. I think one of the problems that they were running into is if they were going to mitigate wind further, they were going to have to do something off-site, and we couldn't do that. It would either be in the public right-of-way, so there's a very narrow setback. Most of that sidewalk is actually on public property, so we could do something in the public right-of-way. But other than that, it was quite challenging to improve the wind conditions more than what they've already done. And yes, the criteria that they used were that the wind conditions couldn't be worse than what's already there, and it being a windy site, it's already challenging, so.
Yeah, I think anyone who knows downtown Dartmouth well, it's always about 5 degrees cooler as soon as you hit Alderney Drive, because you really do get that wind right off the water there. So thank you for the clarification on that. To go back to the public hearing for the Phase 1, one of the dominant themes there wasn't so much design or scale. The community seemed pretty okay with the revised plan for Kings Wharf overall. That second access was one of the key things that people in the development are really concerned about. Not everyone accepts that it should be emergency only. That's the decision we made, but then there are others who feel like, well, we really do need that emergency access finished. So can you speak to that will be coming back to council, but they can't occupy any of this building until that is built?
Yes, that's correct. So the grade separated emergency access would be maintained, the ownership will be maintained by the property owner, so as private property, it's a private road. HRM would have an easement over the road, and it would be, like you say, for emergency vehicle access only, it wouldn't be for personal vehicles. So because it's private development and this property is entirely controlled by the Stage 1 DA, it does need a Stage 2 DA before they can do any development on any of the other lots. So we couldn't approve it with this application because it's not on this lot. But you're correct, so the way that we've kind of stacked the requirements for the grade separated emergency vehicle access, they need to have their design approved by CN and submitted to the HRM development engineer before they can get their building permit. And then they need to have it confirmed or deemed operational by, again, the HRM development engineer prior to occupancy. So it needs to be fully functional before we can have anybody living in this building.
Okay, that'll, I know, will be of interest to some of the folks who already live in Kings Wharf, because that has been a source of, it's been the big kind of concern on this project, in part because the original plan for emergency access proved to be something that was totally unbuildable and impractical. So thank you for that, colleagues. I have no problem with what's before us. I think the design, especially of that street level and courtyard, they've done a really good job of it, and I think this will be a good addition to downtown Dartmouth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mancini, have a question, comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think my question was answered when he's talking about the emergency access. That's the ramp, is that correct? Is that the same thing? I remember that from the public hearing. There was lots of discussion about the ramp and emergency access. That's the same thing?
Yeah. So if I could have the screen up again. If we go back to the schedule that I showed from the Stage 1. So one of the challenges that we have is we don't have a lot of detail from the applicant about where exactly the emergency access is going to go. But if we see here just underneath the part in red, you can see it outlined.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Kind of roughly where it would go. But that's really all we know about what it's going to be or where it's going to what it's going to look like. We don't have any information about how, for example, that would interact with the courtyard, or how it would interact with whatever development is happening on Lot J. So there's still some details that we need to work out.
So in the graphic you're showing, I mean, it looks like a road there, but in fact, it is a ramp. It rises
Yeah.
up into it.
Yeah,
Is that not?
exactly. So
you
it goes over the rail line.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I know there was lots of discussion about that, as the councillor alluded to earlier. You know, I look at what Kings Wharf, the first phase, did to downtown Dartmouth. It was significant, I think. It really brought downtown Dartmouth, it started the ball rolling to what a great community and a downtown it is now. And we're proud to say we have two downtowns, and I think downtown Dartmouth is just as good, if not better. But anyhow, that's my opinion. But the potential of even developing that further with this design, I'm rather excited about what it's going to do for not only downtown Dartmouth, but Dartmouth in general. So I support what's in front of us today. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Just to clarify for the general public's interest again, you know, this is quite a substantial report, 232 pages if people want to look online and read through it. But just explain again, this is not a public hearing, but there's an opportunity for appeal. That goes to whom again?
So there'll be an advertisement in the Chronicle Herald on Saturday, providing the contact information, but the appeal will be filed with the UARB.
Thank you very much. Just want to make sure the general public are aware of the process. So, all right. Any further questions? I'll call for the question on the motion then. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Members of Community Council, any motions to come forward? Hearing none, no in-camera discussion tonight, no added items, no notice of motions. We're here now for public participation. As according to our COVID rules and stuff, to speak to the public hearing, you had to register as of yesterday at 4:30, and I don't believe we had anyone registered to today. And we have no one from the general public present in the gallery, so I'll call it 3 times. Is there anybody in the gallery wish to speak? Second time, and thrice. Okay, there's no one here to speak. Our next scheduled meeting is December the 2nd.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Do we have a location for that December meeting? I did request the clerk's office that we do meet in Dartmouth, even though we may not have the chambers. Had you heard?
I have not heard yet, but I'll check with our clerk's office about that, because I also suggested some other alternative items like East Dartmouth Community Center, or perhaps the conference room there
Right.
at the local hotel and stuff. So there's options available to us. Hopefully, we don't know the status of COVID and the testing going on in our chambers. Hopefully, by December, we don't know if testing is going to be to that regime or necessary, but also with the construction going on in the lobby now,
Right.
at Albany Gate, which should also complicate things a little less for us as well.
Just that if I don't know if tonight's motion that I had earlier, if we're going to go to a public meeting in December, I think it'd be best to have it on the Dartmouth side, not to the Halifax side.
I agree. For the courtesy and the access for the residents, yes, I do concur with that
Okay.
request.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other business? Here now, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Council Purdy? Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned 6:37. Thank you very much, and good night, everyone. Thank you for watching.